Hey, everybody. Got a great story for you today. Sales rep who went from entry level at 18 doing tele sales, as she calls it, in London, and has moved all the way up to running a sales organization for an ad agency. And I think this interview I really enjoyed. Why? Because somebody who gets it, somebody who's gotten out of their own head, who has focused on what the client really wants and struggled and took feedback. She calls it a mentor. Some of us call it a manager. Others, it's just somebody who guides us, somebody who tells us the simple things, but they aren't simple until we recognize them. And too many of us say, oh, I just needed a reminder, this or that. But what we really need is somebody to kind of say, okay, this could be done better. You got to do this. You could do a little better over here. I hope you really enjoy this interview. I'm going to sum up what I learned from it at the end. But you're going to see consistent patterns among these great reps that I'm talking to. Some of them have the gift of it starting in childhood, being able to connect with other people, relate to other people, put extra energy to get attention, and it moves up. Some people are raised by salespeople, and they have a leg up because they're constantly shown what salespeople do. Same way if you want to be a musician. If both your parents are musicians, the likelihood that music comes to you is a little bit higher. But anyways, let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. I'll give everybody an update on the courses and where we are and how they're evolving and how they work. And also, make sure you're checking out Co-Video. Video email is crushing it. I'm getting them now. And, you know, I told you, I think last week about the trick of showing them their website, anything that connects with them in that video so that it's about them instead of you. You're going to get them to listen. Not pitch, but connect with people. And I think this is one of the things you're going to get out of this interview is that people only want to talk to us for one of three reasons. One, they need something. That's easy. We know that. One or two, that they like talking to us. Imagine that. Imagine a client wanting to talk to a salesperson, probably because you're talking about what they care about. And the third is because you have to. And that's the last one we want, because in that case, we're pushing and they can't wait to get rid of us. But let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. Here we go. Hey, Roxy, thanks for joining us today as a way of getting started. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Brian. So right now, I live and work in Barcelona. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from London. Yeah. So I moved here about 12 months ago, and I'm currently working as head of sales for a new agency here, a marketing agency. But my past, previous to that, I've been in sales for about 12 years in total. It was the first ever job. It was the first ever industry or department I ever went into, and I've not left.
Yeah.
Yet.
It's a pretty hard sell, though, isn't it?
What, marketing?
Yeah, marketing services. It's not tangible, right? It's very
I would
subjective.
say, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. I would say that it's easier than it was because so many companies now and businesses now realize that it's such a vital part of their business. And I think especially because we're in a time of startups and young companies where they don't actually have the facilities to do their own marketing. You know, they may have a marketing manager or a CMO, but they don't have the team and the skills and the connections to really do their own marketing in-house. So, you know, now more than ever, I'm seeing a lot of people approaching me, whereas before it was a lot more output, if that makes sense.
Sure. And are you a people manager or are you a individual contributor or both?
Both. And it's a startup as well. So, you know, I get involved in a lot. So, for example, yesterday we were filming all day because we were about to release some training videos on marketing and also explaining a bit more about personal branding and social media, because these are all hot topics at the moment. And we've realized that, so many people want to know about it, but don't know enough.
Yeah.
So we're creating these videos to go onto our new channel where people can learn for free.
Cool. And why Barcelona? I mean, that must be a huge cultural change.
Yeah. It's very different here. I mean, if you compare it to London, London's its own thing. It's very quick. It's very fast
Yeah.
paced. Yeah, and I love it for that. I really, really do. And I think here now it's starting to get a bit faster.
Is it?
There's a lot of businesses. Yeah, well, it's starting to get a bit faster here. So I noticed that compared to London, in London we do a lot of meetups and within the industry. So you'll have things like the inner circle and regular networking events and meetups, and everyone knows everyone. Here, not so much. People have been more focused on just doing their 9 to 5, which is fine if you're just funding your extracurricular activities. But if you want to start thinking about being a sort of leader in your field, you need to be doing a bit more. And I think the culture's changing. The culture's definitely changing.
And is most of the market for your company in Spain, or is it all over Europe or the world?
It's global. It's global. So I would say that our biggest market initially was the US, because the company was actually founded on social media and social media growth. We have, we benefit from having about 15 developers who just study algorithms, and so that's where the company was born from. And now it's sort of it's venturing into other things, so it's not just it's focusing on social media anymore. We're doing a lot more in terms of digital marketing.
And who are you selling to? Is it mostly marketing people, or is it entrepreneurs, or both?
It's completely mixed. I mean, at the moment, we're getting a lot of interest from entrepreneurs and public speakers and people like that, because I mean, personal branding has become such a hot topic. And I think people are realizing that, it's not about necessarily with the benefit of having social media and the internet and being so, connected to people who ordinarily you might have a really hard time getting in front of. You now have these places where you can display your worth and display your work and connect with people who are influential within your field, and also that who you can potentially learn from and collaborate with. And I think people now are realizing this, and because of that, we're getting a lot of the entrepreneurs, the young founders, public speakers that are contacting us.
And what's the hardest part about your sales cycle? I think you can probably get people who are interested, but then the interest sways back and forth, and then they're like, I can do it myself, or I can hire my cousin, or I can.
Yeah, and as well, they just get bogged down with the fact that they've been continuing without this for so long, and actually, do they need to do it, and it can wait another week and things like that. I think you just need to know that from the beginning and eliminate that completely, because the whole part of what you're offering is to save them time anyway. So if you can get that out of the way, that first bit, then not only will they'll achieve their goals much faster, but also they'll have a hands-off approach moving forward. So I think that it's just about having that in mind when you're talking to people and really understanding that.
Yeah. And why'd you choose sales as opposed to doing other stuff?
Anything else? So I guess I've always been really interested in people. So I grew up in a household with 2 older brothers and a mum and dad, and they were all really, really strong characters. And I was the youngest, and I noticed very quickly that to be heard, you had to understand the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not about shouting the loudest.
Right.
Number one, I was the youngest, so I couldn't shout the loudest. But number 2, I realized that you needed to learn about the person you were talking to in order to deliver them something that they're going to respond in the right way to, or well to.
Yeah.
And so from that, I always had an interest in people. And then it just so happens that my first job in London was in telesales. And I guess I just benefited from having an amazing mentor. And he obviously saw something in me, and I saw something in him in the sense of, I learned
helping
so
you
much from him. Yeah. And then straight away I knew this was my industry.
Were either your parents or your brothers in sales?
No, actually.
No?
Well, actually, I should say this. So one of my brothers was the one who got me the job in the first place because he worked there.
Okay.
And very quickly, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but I'm sure he won't. But very quickly, I started to take over a little bit on the sales floor, and I think, but it was good for him because he saw that I was there was something that I was really good at, and he was 10 years older than me at the time. And then I guess from there, my career it sort of sped through very quickly. From by the age of 21, I was working in an office with people, the youngest people in their mid-30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I was on their level at all. They taught me so much. Yeah. But I had something different, maybe, or there was something that I was strong at, as well as them.
Yeah. Well, I heard two things. One, the desire, and not being protective, because sales is a very rejection oriented profession. Yeah, sure. You have to have thick skin. And the other, did you seek out the mentor, or you were just receptive to what the mentor was helping you with?
I think I was just totally receptive. I mean, it was in a way, it's luck. I didn't realize it. The thing is, at the time, I was 18, so I wasn't very serious. It was a 9-to-5 job for me then, as in it was funding my extracurricular activities. I didn't know then that I was.
That's a nice word for partying.
Exactly. But I knew the stuff that he told me, the stuff that I witnessed and saw him doing, I still use today.
Yeah.
And that was quite a while ago now. So.
And what were you doing wrong? What did he correct you on?
He made me smarter, as in dress sense, and I saw the value in that, the value of being on time. I know these are really basic things, but as an 18-year-old at the time, with
extracurricular activities.
But he basically put all the groundwork in to make me a decent worker, and then he drove so much passion, I think, and he made me realize that I was very good at certain things, and what I was good at was adopting a voice, or being able to know who I'm talking to very quickly, assessing the situation, and then delivering on that. And I think he saw that very quickly from me, and Well,
I always find it interesting that how birth order really, develops how you view the world as an adult.
Totally.
Because typically the firstborn are like the leaders. Mm-hmm. I was a middle child, so you're always competing.
Yeah.
And the youngest is they've made their mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. So you're the Rev 3 of the children.
You're a bit independent because they're not so protective over you in a way, so you just sort of go along with things a bit more. You don't. And also because you don't have as much as an opinion as the older children, because you're just expected to get along with things. So you do end up sort of adopting that in your personality. And I think that's the thing for me. I've always just get the job done, whatever it is. Make sure the job is done and the job is done well. There's no such thing as impossible.
Yeah.
I hear that here a lot, actually.
You do.
Which is quite funny. The word impossible.
The word impossible. Yeah. It's not a good word.
No, it's a really rubbish word.
Right, because it's like, can't be done.
It's impossible. Yeah, and that's not true in many cases.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sounds like you're also competitive.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
with myself more than anything. So I think I'm pretty hard on myself, and I like to, and you know, sometimes it works in your favor, but other times you need to learn how to harness it and basically, you know, make sure it doesn't affect you and turn into fear, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Keep it there.
Yeah, because it shouldn't overwhelm you, but it's good as a motivator. I know it's
Definitely.
one of my key motivators, but you don't want to just compete. You want to get what you want.
Yeah.
Well, what else do you feel separates you from kind of the rest of the pack?
In terms of sales.
Sales, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I've always been much more consultative. So I generally I work with clients for quite a long time, and then I become, you know, their sort of go-to person to if they've got a question with regards to whatever it is that I'm selling, you know,
Yeah.
or the industry that we're working in. I've even though I did telesales when I first started out. I think most salespeople, you know, have experienced telesales before, and I was good at it. I was never the ultimate telesales person because I think I have a lot more to deal with in my mind. So I think you've gone there. Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
So for me, I think what separates me is that I like to take my time with my clients. I like to really learn about them first before, you know, before working on anything. And I think in that way, it's helped me, you know, do good for them, but also, you know, and provide the best service at the end of
Yeah.
the day. It's not about quick wins.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have empathy, curiosity, and interest in their world, and you're talking about them and what they care about, as
Yeah,
opposed to
I
you and
care
what you
about them.
care about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, I care about people, and you know, and I think sales. I think people have a completely different view about sales. A lot of people do. They think it's just about taking money off people, and it really isn't.
No.
It isn't. It's about someone having an issue and you being able to solve that issue for them.
Yes.
And I think, you know, the longer that you work with the client, you realize that there are other things that you can help them with, you know,
Yes.
and I think it's more like being a helping hand, you know, being that extra, almost, and it's not like a PA, but in a way it's the counselor, as you know, a business
Right.
counselor.
Because
Yeah,
not only do you know how to sell, but you know what your company can do for them. And they
for
may
sure.
not even know that or be thinking about it. And too many
Yeah,
salespeople just talk about what you do and how much it costs, as opposed to what it does for them.
exactly.
And that's where the
Exactly.
magic is.
It's exactly.
Right. Because that's why they want to talk to you, as opposed to you
And
just checking in on the order or checking in
yeah,
on.
and there's no point. What does that even mean? You know, when you say I'm just checking in, it's when you're a busy person and you receive an email like that from someone that's supposed to be working with you, it's embarrassing. It's not fair on the person. You know, checking in on what? What
Right.
exactly are you
What you
checking?
want, not what they
My
want.
dogs get fed this morning. What are you checking in on? It's
Yeah.
like, or catching up with. You know, if there needs to be a conversation. You need to know who you're talking to. I think that's the number one thing.
Right. Because people will not talk to you unless they want something or you have something to give.
For sure.
Right. And if you can't figure out something to give, then you're not really in sales, you're in service.
You're wasting their time,
You're wasting their
and
time and
it
you're
could
only
just be something that
frustrating yourself.
yeah, exactly. It's a click buy then, isn't it? Rather than
It
actually
is.
being a consultant and trying to help someone and
Yeah.
really, you know, saving them time, because that's the most important thing with business. You know, it's to save people time, I think.
Now, are you managing salespeople now?
Yeah. So, and we've got some interns coming as well, which is going to be quite interesting, I think. But I really like managing people. And one thing, so when I first started out, as I said, I sort of quite quickly, I did very well as a young person. You know, by the age of 21, I was in a very good position, but one thing I didn't really understand was how to manage people back then.
Yeah.
If I look, you know, it was awful. Not awful, that's the wrong word to describe it, but realistically it wasn't right. You know, it was all about deadlines, getting things done. I don't care, get it done.
Yeah.
And you know, in my older years I've learned that this is really not the way, and this is why in sales you have such a high turnover.
Right.
Because just because you're a good salesperson doesn't make you a good manager.
Not usually the opposite. Yeah.
It's usually the opposite, unfortunately. Yeah. But when I have a business as well, and when I was focusing on hiring for that business and training people up for that business, I realized that you need to learn about people before you start delivering any information. You need to understand who you're talking to, realize for that person to have a tone for that person,
yeah.
You know, so that they understand you
right.
fully. And also, you know, there's ways and means of getting people to do what you want and what you need them to do, and not everyone is the same, and so you need to understand that. And from that point, when I think I was about 26 at the time, I realized, you know, this is how to manage people, and I actually really enjoy it now. I really like it.
That's it. Because at first you try and just do the KPIs and the deadlines, but you're not connecting with the person, and they're just smiling and nodding and then going off and doing it wrong.
Yeah, of course. And then not wanting to turn to you to talk to you because they just think you're going to breathe down their neck. And
right.
You know, that's not the right thing. You know, you need to be their mentor. It's not just their boss that's saying,
right.
Yeah.
Because that mentoring, to be able to mentor, you have to have rapport with them. There has to be trust. There has to be an open communication.
And that goes for their personal life as well. If they want to, and I've had it before where one of the guys that I used to work with, he was ranting at me on the phone for about an hour and a half, and then at the end of it, he sort of came to his own conclusion. And at the end of it, he just went, thank you so much for listening to that. And I just said, look, this is what I'm here for. If you can go off now and do a fantastic job, then that's amazing, isn't it? And realistically, I'm more than happy to if that's going to help that person, then I'm more than happy to listen. You know,
and what do you look for in salespeople? Have you gotten a sense of people who will be successful and who won't? Is there?
It depends on the product and it depends on the type of role. So you know, it's if it's an account manager type of role, then I want that person to be, you know, how you would probably see your marketing type of person, if that makes sense. You know, someone that's very thoughtful and really will look into it and work hard. If it's telesales, you want the complete opposite. You want someone that's, you know, I'm not saying they can't be thoughtful, but you want someone who's very quick and sharp and gets things, you know, and can change, you know, is very changeable. It totally depends on the role. I think that, you know, everything we do in life is sales. You know, even getting your children up in the morning and getting them to school, it's almost, you're selling that to them, aren't you? But there are special people that are born that are very good with people, and that's the difference.
Yeah, and what I heard and what I recognized in you is this, what the psychologists call this outward mindset, the ability to think like other people, and what they call other minds, to understand how that other person represents the world so that you can talk about what they care about.
Yeah, and also I find it interesting.
Yeah, your curiosity.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, it just, you know, I have a mum that's Iranian. I have a dad that's British. I grew up in London, but now live in Barcelona. You know, and
you got to be curious. Yeah,
I really am. And I find that, you know, there's not many situations that I walk into that I'm stumped for something to say, because, or I can't converse with that person, and it's not just, you know, them talking or whatever. And I really enjoy that. You know, I take pride in it, and it enriches my life.
And were you always like that from being a child all the way through, or was there an epiphany where you just developed it and noticed it? And
Always like it, I think.
yeah.
I had a lot of interesting people walking in and out the house. My dad was a famous journalist, and my mum was doing all sorts of things. And I think it was just a curiosity from a young age. Maybe it's nature, maybe nurture, probably both.
Yeah.
But being sort of having it having it in the house from a very young age.
Cool. Hey, this has been a great time. Where can people go to follow you and learn more about your work?
Check out my LinkedIn page. It's Roxy Fielding. And feel free to give me a message on there. Any advice I can give to anyone, more than happy to do that as well. So that's great.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did doing it. What I got out of it is that it was a complete outward mindset, caring about the clients, talking about what the clients care about. That's how you get engagement. That's how you get the conversation going and moving. And there's a talent to it. There's a skill and a performance to it. It's not just reading a script. You have to have empathy and curiosity and interest in the other person. And it takes lots of practice. And it takes a technique. You have to get out of your head and into theirs. And some people say, well, I don't want to become their friend. It's not about that at all. It is being friendly, but you don't have to be their friend. You have to care about what they're doing. Think about yourself. When somebody cares about where you are and tries to help you with a particular problem, you're open-minded to it. I love this interview because when I hear somebody who clearly gets it, who knows they're not perfect, who knows that they can always become better, who seeks out a mentor or somebody to give them feedback and guidance and coaching, that is critical. Because every sales manager I talk to, coachability is in the top 2 or 3. Why? Because you can't get better unless you correct, unless you get better. And if we think we're perfect, guess what? You're by default wrong because there's nobody that's perfect. And when I hear the same thing on LinkedIn all the time. I've been doing this for 400 years and I've been the most successful person in the history of mankind. Okay, that's why you are living in your parents' basement. No. Yes, we have success, but the key differentiator about sales is yesterday's success is only going to help us a little bit. No one cares. No customer cares if you made your quota. No customer cares if you were King Poobah last month. They only care about what you're going to do for them and how you are going to help them. That's how it's a performance. Not in the dance and sing type of way, but in the how well you help them, how well you guide them. Too many of us think our customers know exactly what to do. Ask yourself, what's your decision-making process for having a great weekend? I bet there isn't one. You probably call some friends. You probably go out to a party. You probably find a joint activity that you both like, and it just kind of flows. The sales process is a lot like that. We have to guide through the elements, through the evaluation, and it's up to us to make it happen. Now, here's what I'm doing with the courses. It's moving to much more of a case study approach. Now, these courses can be started at any time. That you get 100% access to the content and you go through it at your own pace. It's under the assumption that you are self-motivated. If you're not self-motivated, sales is probably not the career for you because the carrot and the stick will only get you so far. In sales, you have to have your why. Why am I doing this? Why am I putting up with this? I get it. It is not an easy job. There's lots of easier jobs, but there's no job that's going to pay like this with such little education. Because why do they pay us big bucks? Because it's hard. Because it requires us to be self-motivated. It requires us to make things happen. And that's what we have to realize. But the courses teach you how to build a system, how to understand the game that you're playing instead of the stimulus response. So you can pay for it all at once or in monthly payments. So it's affordable. So don't give me the excuse you don't have money. You have money. Shut the hell up. Do you have any ambition? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Are you open to getting better, or are you just going to sit around and blame everybody around you for why you're not getting what you want? If you want to make $500K a year, you want to double your income, guess what? You're going to have to understand the complex sale better and take action. Sitting around for another year isn't going to get you there. I know you think it is, or talking about it will help. No, you have to act. You're not going to get in shape by thinking about exercising. You're going to have to get out there, and you're going to have to make it a pattern. You're going to have to come up with a plan, a system, and you're going to have to repeat it to create a habit. And to do that, it's not going to be in your head. You've got to get it out. You've got to listen to what other people are doing. So the course is not just the content. There's community, in that there's groups on LinkedIn that you can talk through as private groups. There's office hours where we meet up every other Friday. And everything is recorded and put into the course anonymously. Nobody knows your name, your company, or your product, or your customer. It's the way you learn is from your mistakes, other people's mistakes, and my mistakes. And I got a lot of them. And you get unlimited coaching, which is a 30-minute Zoom call, one-on-one. Zoom is a screen sharing app. We bring up the course material and apply it to a particular deal. You want to get into a big account? Let's put together a strategy. If you want to close a big deal, let's get a strategy together. Let's work together on it. And you get to hear other people doing it, so you understand how it works. And this is based off of real world experience. I wasn't in sales for 5 or 10 years. I was in sales for a good 25 years, always at the tough little startups, the first sales guy they hired, selling no brand support. Yes, my company got bought by IBM, and I had a couple of years there, but the company that got bought was less than 100 people. So I know what it's like to sell hard things to difficult situations, new technologies. And what I learned was how companies buy and how to control it. Too many of us are great at getting the meeting and then having a great presentation, then it dies. How do you get the whole deal done? How do you know what to work on? How do you prioritize stuff? How do you come up with a strategy? That's what it's all about. So check it out at b2brevenue.com. Hit the training tab. Pick a time. Look through the courses first. Pick a time that works for you. Now, this is to talk about the training, not about your career or your problems or your kids or your dogs. This is to talk about the training and how it applies to you. It's not a free consultation time. So don't misunderstand that. Look at the courses. Understand what problem you're trying to solve. A lot of people have a hard time. Are you getting enough meetings, or doubling or tripling that would really drive your revenue? Or are you into accounts, but the deals aren't closing? They're not progressing. There's not a systematic way of each next step. You don't understand what to do next, and you're asking them, and they tell you something, but they don't know. If I was to ask you, what's your decision-making process to buy a house? What would you say? Find a house and buy it, right? That's how we think. But there's a million little steps. You got to get a mortgage. You got to get inspected. You got to get all your paperwork in place. You got to make sure you can afford it. Make sure the house is stable, that the bank will approve it. And you got to get a bid in it so that you get it instead of somebody else. There's a lot of complexity to business selling. Most people think it's all money, budget. It's never once has it been budget. Not once. Why? Because they got billions of dollars in the bank, but you have to figure out how to get some of it. And that's what I'm here to do, here to help you find that. So check it out. Also, there's 2 other podcasts. There's the Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, and the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. Got a great episode this week on that. Also, I put all this stuff up on YouTube if you'd like to see the video version of it. all nicely condensed. And make sure you're following me on LinkedIn and the company page, the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast company page on LinkedIn. We'll see you next time.